I don't know who they are, but
isn't that funny?
I couldn't believe it was
my sister.
That's your sister?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it when my tenant brought that to me. He's like,
That's
you know who these
hilarious.
people are? I was like, yeah, it's probably not important at this point, but I'll carry it in. Here, you or Spencer's be good this morning.
Yeah, Spencer's got the flu.
Oh no, seriously?
Yeah. He's got a fever with medicine in him and bad chest congestion.
I had that 2 weeks ago, Carl. I'm still not right.
Yeah?
That Monday was 2 weeks. I was flat on my back for a week.
Mm.
I can't remember last time.
Really? Actually, Derek mentioned that before we stopped in. Yeah, I hope it didn't get that bad.
Excuse me, Carl can vouch. I've been here 3 times this early, waiting for people.
Yeah.
Sitting in your seat, proudly.
That's right. Oh, that's why, because you knew he was sick. You weren't as brave as I thought you were.
No. No. No, the sacred seat comes with penalties if you take it.
Mm-hmm. What?
Just slide this up a little
Yeah, it got moved around
bit. Past my knees.
a few meetings ago, so feel free to adjust.
Oh. Hello.
Hello, hello.
How are you? How are you?
Pretty good. Yes. I like the pretty cups here in the front.
Yeah.
Sally Newkirk. For crying out loud.
What?
Somebody posted that video of Babe Ruth.
Uh-huh.
She just posted, I don't like how you know that, but I fucked up.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, Sally.
Uh-huh.
Sally.
Do that.
Shake. What? How are you getting paid and I'm not? It's called selling. These things called closings that require.
Did I attend for you? Is that what you mean? Yeah,
Attend for you
okay.
on the hill.
Hmm.
Back and forth, your closings. I think I praised that too. Which one? You didn't get there. Well, no, we got 300. Well, that was this price. Oh, that was this price. Gotcha. Could not believe that. Crazy call from you one day. I was for updates, and I was like, well, just general good maintenance. No. It's like, did you repay the debt? No. Fuck. Oh. I know what that one is. Buffalo. Oh, that's not fun. Well, I'm very eager to see that one.
Right.
Alright.
Oh, okay. I'll remember not to wear my clothes next time. I'll bring a towel.
There's.
No, it's not fun. It's 5 or 6 acres.
Doing very well. How are you? Come to the gala this morning? I have to support my partner. He's giving a speech.
Good for you.
But you have a whole lot of the speech. I can go for about 10 minutes without going into the coffee. But still. It'll be good.
I don't know, really. That's more a gig, like a 15-minute speech. Oh, okay.
She's giving a longer speech than I am.
Oh, I would. That doesn't surprise me, actually. Past president, Mr. What?
Year in review kind of thing.
Okay.
10 minutes take as much time as you want.
Ooh, I better get a haircut.
So, I love getting these texts in the morning. Hey, Cheryl, would you up for selling our house.
Oh,
Sure.
yeah, we love those. We love.
I'll say it's fine.
So see, you will, that will happen to
That
you
would be
too.
good.
So no, actually, the old joke was we sat up here because I had a place to put my
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Are you a coffee drinker?
I am not. Singer's coffee drinker.
Okay.
To
Okay.
get you started,
Okay.
and you can make notes on, but
Okay.
fire agreement,
Okay.
contract, home inspection addendum,
Okay.
and the new addendum.
All right. Fantastic. Thanks very much.
So is that your homework?
It is
Okay.
indeed.
Okay.
He's
Morning, Carl.
getting me busy.
How are you?
Yeah.
Do a little housekeeping this morning?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
you had
because I
to
keep,
vacuum
Oh,
cleaner
I know.
out first thing
Uh-huh.
this morning.
well, I mean, I keep all my camera stuff in there, and so I keep my office locked, so it never is
Oh, the
supposed to
clean,
come.
gotcha.
Mhm.
And I'd made a mess in there, so I need to start
Well,
bothering me.
that's impressive because you know what? Not everyone cleans up their own messes, so that's
Mhm.
impressive.
Mhm.
You're right about that. So how's Dave?
He's fine.
Good.
He's doing good.
Good.
Other than fussing and complaining that he has a new ache and pain he's doing.
Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, that's funny.
And you know us, we're not couch potatoes.
Oh yeah, no.
So that doesn't.
He
that
doesn't stop him.
No, that
Yeah.
doesn't sit well with
Yep,
us.
I understand. I understand that.
Mm.
I didn't know I had that part.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep, we can relate to that.
Sam's been working on some clearing the woods back there
Yeah.
that we got, and yeah, I went back and helped him a couple of days the other week, and I'm like, I'm really not used to doing this time of year.
Uh,
I work my butt off in the summer.
I
but, you
can't
know,
believe y'all had anything left to clean up.
We did indeed. We did indeed. Obviously, there hadn't been a lot done to that woods back in there
Well-
when we bought it or when we got it. So
Mm.
yeah, it's, so we've been working on clearing that off.
Do you have deer come in there?
We do, and they came in and ate my flowers
Oh
last
no!
year.
Oh
Mhm.
no! Okay.
A lot of
That's
sweet
I have
potato
hostas
vines.
that come up every year,
Yeah.
and the deer wait, and they wait,
Uh-huh.
and as soon as they're in
Uh-huh.
full bloom, the next morning
Yep.
they're all down to the
Yeah,
little 4-inch
absolutely. It's
nubs.
just like a weed eater goes
Yep.
on top of them.
you'll have
yes.
to get that list of plants that deer don't like.
And don't
Yeah.
plant- yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was telling you, I was in Massanutten on
Mhm.
Saturday on Congers Lane, which
Mhm.
that's the street I haven't been on. too.
Uh-huh.
I've never, and I see deer all the time in
Mhm.
Massanutten, but that was backs up to the National Forest.
Mhm.
I actually videotaped. I've never seen so many deer in all my life.
Really.
I was watching a group right before my folks got there. I was watching a group of about 6 over here, and I kept hearing something over here.
Yeah.
There must have been 10 or 12 coming from the other direction.
Mhm.
And so when my folks showed up, they said, "Oh yeah, we've been sitting down the road watching them."
Watching those
So,
too. Oh.
Mhm.
Yeah, they seem
Yeah.
awfully plentiful.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, within Massanutten, they're pets, and
Oh,
they
sure.
they
Yeah.
understand traffic. They'll stand at the side of the road and wait, see if you're going to stop, and
That's
if you do,
fine.
then they'll all trot out
Yeah.
together.
seriously.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. In the residential side,
Yeah.
and even in the other side. I was out one Saturday morning. I was the only person out there working on a bike trail, just cleaning stuff up at the end, and here comes this deer, young buck, just munching on leaves, working his way towards me. Sees me, and keeps coming towards me. Gets to within 8 or 10 feet,
Mhm.
and then walks down the bike trail.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
But,
That's fine.
we've always had them, but we've never had them, munch on the plant.
Yeah.
So, but
Oh,
I know
man.
that is frustrating. It's kind of like
Yes,
the
it's
old
very
garden.
frustrating.
Yeah.
Yes.
Daylilies, hostas,
Yeah.
they
Sweet
just
potato vines,
they'll
they
wait
love
until
those.
Wow.
they're full, and then they just the next morning they're just gone.
Yes. Yeah, I was like, what in the heck is this? The first morning I went out, and then the next morning it was another bed, and they made it all the way down to the front yard, and that bed runs along the road.
Mm,
Really?
And your beds aren't 5 minutes worth of work to plant. I think.
Mhm.
They should have the fall as many as they ate that night.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the sweet potato that a sweet potato vine produces, Is that edible?
I don't think so. So we
Okay.
just dig them up and throw them back.
I've always thrown them out too, but I'm amazed when I clean my pots out. Huge!
Enormous.
How huge that is. That is a pretty size.
It is beautiful. I love them. That's why I hate the deer like that.
Yep, yep.
All right, got some people here.
Good morning, Terry.
Hi, how you doing?
Yes, I do. Terry,
Dee Sensen Diver. It's
new,
nice to meet you.
new agent.
Yes. My first meeting, so I'm excited. Everything's exciting now.
Mhm.
Yes, indeed.
Well, that's a good thing. We just gotta keep that
That's
excitement.
right, exactly.
Right.
Well, and in this business, with so much,
I just can't, like.
things don't always happen the same. So you can hopefully keep that excitement
Yes,
with,
that's
with
right.
lots of new things
Yep,
happening.
that's what I liked about my last career. Nothing was ever the same.
Well, I guess so.
Well, this hopefully will be a little more positive
That's what
excitement
I'm
and
looking
not
for.
not so much
I had
life
that
and death.
conversation
Yeah,
with someone last night, so yes, I had that very
Yeah.
conversation.
yeah. Your perspective is going to be really unique in this. When people are freaking out all around you, and you're like, "Well, nobody's bleeding."
Yeah,
You know?
kidding, exactly.
That is too funny.
Yeah.
I can only imagine
Yeah.
some of the hilarious stories.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
iTunes,
Mm.
so we did like a recover password, but then it went to this different device, and it was just like all this stuff, yeah, so.
Computer issues.
Yeah.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. We're going to start out by introducing a new agent. Dee Sensendiver is joining us here. She's a friend of Debbie's. Debbie will be her mentor. Dee, this is her second career. She comes to us from a long career in 911 emergency services. So she'll be one of the few of us that the stress of this job really isn't much.
Different kind of stress.
Different kind of stress. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So our habitat dates have been moved up again. We are now hoping to be out there the 13th and 17th of February. And again, I will keep you posted if that actually looks like it's going to happen by the end of the week or next week. I hope you're organizing your Outlook contacts. We haven't made a final decision on the CRM, but it looks pretty good. And so I think organizing your Outlook contacts now, even as I mentioned, take one letter of the alphabet a day and knock out all your A's today and your B's tomorrow. Categorize them, clean up duplicates, that kind of thing. It'll serve you very, very well as we move into the year. We'll talk more about that at our business meeting next week, Tuesday the 11th. We've got a great speaker. I have not met her. She's a friend of Keith's, president of Shenandoah University. And he says she's just fantastic. So we will recap the past year, talk about what we're hoping to get done this year. We're going to spend some time talking about the Synergy team, make sure everybody really understands what that is, how it functions, where your money goes, that kind of thing. We'll have our special awards. If you haven't voted yet, please hit that link that Sammy sent you and go vote for the special awards. And then we'll have some great food.
8:30?
8:30. Anything else they need to know? Right, Valley Pike. If you haven't yet, it's a sore subject with a lot of us, but we all need a Harrisonburg business license. If this is your first year experiencing it, please talk with Rebecca to make sure you get it right. There is a threshold. It's based on your earnings. There's a threshold below which you don't pay anything. So if you're just getting started, it shouldn't be that bad. But once you earn over $50,000 in a year, they start hitting you fairly hard. It is based on this address, not where you live. So just because you live in the county doesn't get you out of the Harrisonburg tax.
And they have been mailed, so if you haven't gotten it yet.
Right. Good point. Okay, Erin, I asked Erin to join us today, and thankfully she's available to do that. I saw an article yesterday from Virginia Realtors, our economist there, talking about credit scores and how they're changing the way that calculation is made, which kind of caught my interest. So the article starts out by saying, good news, credit scores are up slightly over the past few years. Some people think that's due to the all the negative stuff from the recession finally dropping off people's reports. That's probably part of it. This says that it's also due to a change in behavior. Generally, older folks, boomers, have a high credit rating, but the biggest increase was in the millennial age group, 25% increase in the last 7 years. So I think that's something that's interesting. And I noticed that listening to Spencer and his friends talk, they are all keenly aware of their credit scores and what that means. And I certainly wasn't at 25. So I think that's a good change. They believe that folks have actually changed their behavior for the better. So we're using credit cards less. We're paying more on time. Nearly 6 out of 10 folks have a score higher than 700. Virginia is higher than average, and the highest in Virginia is Charlottesville, where the average is 730, which is pretty impressive. So then they start talking about the change, and this is what I'm hoping Aaron can fill in a few blanks for us. What this is talking about is FICO, which I actually never knew this. Fair, Isaac and Company, that's FICO. That's where that acronym comes from. So that company has announced that they're going to now start considering longer time periods when calculating a person's credit, and they're going to put more weight or start including personal loans, which this article says is going to be about 50-50. About 50% of people will see their scores go up a little bit, and half the people can see their scores go down. So that will be something to watch out for, but it says that Fannie and Freddie have said that for the time being, at least, they're still going to use the old way scores were calculated. So our business there won't be an overnight change. So with that, I'll see if you can help us understand.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So at first I was like, oh no, but I don't know if anybody remembers, I don't know, time goes by so fast. Maybe 3 years ago, the credit bureaus, there was a big dispute between Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion with consumers about wrong information being reported, like tax liens and judgments on people's credit. And so then they changed the credit report, and if a judgment or something derogative didn't have 6 factors that matched the borrower, then that did not show on people's credit report. I ran into it very minimally, and where we run into it is when we pull title work. They'd be like, there's a judgment here for your borrower, and I was like, it was on their credit. Like, I don't know. I don't know if anybody kind of ran into that with closings in the last couple of years with judgments. And it would be a scramble to either identify, was it our borrower or wasn't it? Before, those were showing up a lot easier. So then this is now kind of in that same lane where a lot of the derogatories have gone off because we're kind of past the recession or the 7-year period and everything that happened. And so now they're looking at, okay, let's think about people's credit card debt and personal loan debt. And so lenders are starting to see, while nobody's really defaulting and everybody's doing good on payments, lenders got caught real bad in that crash. And so they're really starting to look at consumer debt and the whole of school loans too, and really factoring in like, oh, okay, well, they're going to have to be repaying those. Even as qualifying, we look at those different now. We used to not have to count a payment against people if they're deferred. Now we do have to calculate a minimum payment or get documentation from the school loan on what's going to be their payment and use that. So just kind of looking for the crack to hit the fan period and being proactive instead of reactive. And so in doing so, when you have a credit score, 100% of the score, a big part of it is payment history, revolving debt, and personal loans. And so they're really going to start looking at the credit card debt a lot more stricter. So I have a lot of people that use a credit card, and even if they don't put it at 30% a month, the limit. So like if your limit is $300, you don't want to spend more than $90 a month. I have a lot of people that put all their monthly expenses on a credit card and then pay it off. You can still continue to do that. Just make sure that limit, whenever they're charging it, they're not doing more than 30% of the limit. But this change is going to start looking at that activity a lot more closely and saying, is this a habit? Are they doing this every month? Are they doing it just one time out of the year, a month? I thought that was really interesting, why that would really matter, because if they're paying it off. But I actually, Realtor.com had a great article that I printed, and it talked about that's something they're going to be looking at. Late payments, I tell people, those are the kiss of death, a late payment. I I have seen somebody make one 30-day late payment on a JCPenney credit card, have a $25 limit, tank their score 50 or 60 points.
Wow.
So it is imperative that, you know, if you go to, a lot of people forget they're at the line at, you know, Old Navy, you want to open up a card, save 20%, and then they forget to make that first payment and it jacks them. So just, you know, for personal or even to tell your clients, those can just really kill someone. Well, that's dramatic, not kill, but kill their credit. So yeah, that and then school loans. I mean, they're just a necessary evil, but they're going to start looking at that a lot more, and with a lot more scrutiny and saying, you know, yeah, I mean, I look at some people's credit report. The record I ever pulled was a pharmacist had $582,000 in school loan debt. I was like,
Oh my God.
like, how are you ever going to climb out of that? Like, I don't know. Anyways, yeah. So, yeah, he was in charge of my house, and he was like, "Oh, don't worry, I'm gonna work for a place where I'm gonna do that student loan forgiveness or whatever, get that done." And I was like, "Okay, hope that works out for you." So, anyways, those are the changes. Late payments, a lot more. They were strict to begin with. They're gonna be even more strict, more impact, negative impact. Revolving debt, looking at that more closely. Overall, revolving debt being used, and loans, personal loans.
So you're saying some folks routinely put all their expenses on a credit card to get points or miles or whatever, and then pay that off. That's going to hurt people now.
Only if they're going over that 30% limit. So a lot of people think, okay,
But they might be if they're putting their mortgage and their car payments and yeah.
Yeah, so
That's ridiculous that they're gonna look at that.
exactly. Because before it's like a 30-day account. They're paying it off.
Yeah,
for
as long as
30
you-
days, so you would
Yeah,
think,
you pay it off, why does it
Yes.
matter to them? They should not be able to.
because here's the thing with that. Every creditor, I'm using some old school technology or
Mhm.
terms, but I call it tapes. So back when I used to work like Planners Bank, we would send everybody's payment history, we called those the tapes, to the bureaus. And we did that on the 5th of every month. Well, each creditor has a different tape day, report day. And so let's say you have all your charges on Capital One, and their tape day is the 17th of the month, and you just haven't paid it yet because your billing cycle, and so you look like you've got $4,000
You look like
of
that's the only way you can pay your
charges, and your
bills.
limit's only $6,000. They're like, ooh, that's not good. She's got hers charged real hard. So they're going to start looking at that, and that's where I tell people, look, if your credit's good already, then just call your credit card companies and try to get the limit raised, so that you know whatever you typically
makes sense.
spend, you're going to be at 30% of that limit, and then you should be fine. Because I run into that a lot where people are like, oh yeah, but I pay it off every month, and I'm like, with this change, apparently that's going to hold more weight. You can have more cards, and I always felt that way, but now with this new scoring model, they're saying they're going to take that into consideration, the amount of credit cards you have. Before, it was the amount of credit cards you had was actually good, because if you were only using them very minimally, then that was looking like, oh, they have a ton of credit and they're not using it. But this has yet to be seen how it's really going to perform. You know, like anything, they say they're going to do this, and then I really wonder what the impact's going to be and how much they're really going to, what that way is. I'm waiting to see an actual chart. So they're like, now I can print a chart that shows like a pie that says percent, like how it scores. I want to see that new pie. I haven't been able to find it. And then I'll be able to know a little bit more. But that would be the biggest thing to walk away from. A lot of people want those points, and
Yeah.
so they charge.
I would like you to give us some examples, because you're using some terms that I don't know about everybody else in the room. Give us some examples of what a personal loan is.
Okay, very good. There's a local bank, DuPont here, that will do a lot of personal loans because they, you know, you've banked with them for a very long time. They know that they trust you. And so a lot of kids will have a lot of credit card debt at I don't say kids, people will have credit card debt. And those percentages are like at 20% or 15%. And I'll see this a lot of times where they'll go get pre-approved or just go there to get a car loan. And they're trying to cross-sell products.
Right.
So they'll go, hey, I see you got 2 credit cards here at a total balance of $5,000. We'll roll that into a personal loan for you at 8%. And what do you want to do? Sure, great, let's do it. Well, now that's not really good because that personal loan is considered unsecured, just like the credit card was unsecured. There's nothing secured against it. You don't pay your bill, creditors out. But a personal loan unsecured is a lot less, is more negatively looked at than a credit card. Why? I don't know. But in this, that was in general, and then with this new scoring model, they're saying personal loans are going to be looked at a little bit more negative. So debt consolidation, a lot of people do that. I have an American Express card that I charge and I pay it off. And they were always trying to cross-sell me a personal loan. And I'm like, no, I don't want an unsecured personal loan. I just always knew back in my mind it's not a very good debt. A car loan is secured. So that's considered like a personal loan, but not really because it's secured against the car.
So what
yeah.
should a person do if they've got 3 credit cards at 18% and they have a chance to lower their interest rate because they've been behaving well? What's their best option?
So you mean chance to lower the rate and go into a
Through
personal
some
loan?
kind of debt consolidation loan. Is there one that doesn't hurt them, or do they get a better credit card at a lower rate and roll it to that?
Mean, that is, the jury's kind of out on that. Me personally, I would say I'm more mindful of overall debt and the way to pay it off the quickest. So taking that scenario, and Aaron Childs' recommendation would be put it in a personal loan, because ultimately, if you're not trying to buy a house recently and you're just trying to get your debt paid off and you want to pay the low interest, well then that's the better financial decision. Don't worry about the credit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but then looking at it from a credit side, I'd say, well, let's see if we can try to get your credit score up a little bit to get a lower rate offered through the credit card company and keep it on a revolving. So credit is just one of these things that can be so intimidating. And actually, by default somehow, I kind of got into it, and I speak at the local high schools and do a credit class. And, it's so good. I love it. Just tell my teenagers, like, hey, credit, you can get jacked up real quick. You walk
Absolutely.
to a college campus your freshman year, and the credit card company
Oh yeah, they're hitting.
throwing it at
Right.
you.
Right.
Here's a credit card.
Right. Go buy a TV.
Yeah, go buy a TV. So overall, lenders in general are trying to be proactive and seeing the potential for another moment of consumers are being responsible with their housing payment. We're not seeing default happening because lenders got responsible and lended to people that were actually credit worthy with the whole QM, qualified mortgage, ability to repay. But they're just seeing in total people are just getting way more debt than ever.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay.
Go to local college. Yeah.
Any other general financing questions while we've got Aaron in the room?
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, everybody, 5 years. I've been here 5 years. Can you believe it? This is my 5-year anniversary this year.
Wow, fantastic! And you want to talk a little bit about Thursday?
Yeah, so Thursday is more just kind of like, come party with us. Please don't feel like, oh, I don't send them any leads. I don't care about that crap. We're all family. Just come. I want to feed you and have fun. It's a big party. So everybody's welcome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. You're coming. Yeah.
Skip that. Do that differently. So I want to talk a little bit about agency. Virginia Realtors also came out with a very good little refresher on that. There we go. So we'll just kind of skim over it. But this is something that comes up all the time. And every time we think we understand it, a real life situation comes up that makes it a little more complicated. So I think it's good to a couple times a year just kind of go over the basics and make sure we're all on the same page. So agency, of course, is when we represent somebody else, when we've been hired by a buyer or seller to act in their best interests. Now we are their agent. We need a signed brokerage agreement. We do great on the listing side, not so great on the buyer side. I can tell you probably 75% of the conversations I have with agents that start out with, I was working with these folks, but now they're working with XYZ. First question is, do you have a buyer's agreement? And their answer is no. And in that case, we're just stuck. You know, you're really really just stuck. Plus the fact that technically we're violating the law. That brokerage relationship needs to be agreed to by both parties, and when we do that, that person becomes our client. In our brokerage agreements, Virginia Realtors gives us several pages of legal stuff, but here's all that's really required, and this is what we did when this first came out, and we did our own forms, had Chris Jones review them, and really this is all he was looking for, because this is all the law says that they have to include. They have to be in writing. They have to have a definite termination date. If there is none, 90 days is assumed. They have to say how much we're getting paid and when we get paid. They have to say what we're going to do, and then a space for any other terms that are agreed on. It's really that simple. All that other stuff are protections for both parties based on all the crazy things that have happened and need to be considered along the way. So the interesting thing about the buyer side is that it's still, depending on who you talk to, there's still a lot of debate about when we need to get that buyer agreement signed. The real estate board sent some guidance out a few years ago, a couple of years after their initial rule, which said, hey, you have to have the buyer's agreement signed before you unlock the door. Now they kind of put it back on us and say it has to do with the party's intent. What is that? Is that person you're showing really want to buy a house, or are they just getting a tour of the town? And the licensee needs to use their own judgment based upon the customer's words and actions. The baseline is when you have substantive discussion. That's an easy trigger, regardless of what their intent is. If they're asking you things without an agreement, you can tell them anything that they could publicly find: square footage, age of the house, property taxes, bedrooms and bathrooms and schools, how far from the hospital, all those kind of things. But when they start asking you questions that for which you need to use your experience and your expertise, is this a fair price? Does this neighborhood sell well? Is this a good builder? Those kind of things. Now they're getting into a more substantive discussion outside of public information, and they're asking you for your advice. And before we do that, we have to have an agency relationship. So that's kind of an easy trigger, and that comes up usually in two scenarios. One is you get a call on your listing, or you get a floor duty call here on one of our listings, and so you go out to meet them, and you don't begin immediately by saying, hey, nice to meet you, my name's Carl, please sign this contract to work with me. You establish some rapport. If they do have an interest in the house and start asking those second level questions, that's when we need to kind of put the brakes on and be sure they understand who you represent. If it's your listing and you represent the seller, if it's our company listing, and we're going to talk about designated agency. Limited standard versus limited service. We really don't like limited service. Every once in a while, we'll have a rare situation, where somebody's already got a deal made, or they've got a friend who wants to buy the place, but they need some guidance and that kind of thing, and we'll do a limited service agreement. But we don't do pay me $500 and I'll put you in the MLS, and that's all I'm going to do, or piecemeal out. Hey, for a less brokerage fee, would you do this and this for me, but not this, this, and this? Just as a matter of policy. There's nothing wrong with that as a business model, but that's not our business model. So designated and dual is what tends to be confusing sometimes. And where I see some of the confusion is that people are afraid of designated agency. They don't even want to try it. They immediately try to, or they're afraid of client customer. And so they immediately want to refer that person to somebody else. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes that might not be in everybody's best interest. So remember that if we've been hired by, if you're in one of your listings, you're holding an open house, somebody calls you on a listing and you're showing it to them, we've been hired by the seller to sell that house. So if the folks looking at it are getting serious and they start asking those substantive questions, and you say, hey, I just need you to understand that this is my listing. I have a contract with the seller to work for their best interests. If you're okay moving forward that way without representation, there's a document we can sign that shows we all understand that. If you'd like your own representation, we can arrange for that too. If they're okay moving on, then imagine your seller is standing right behind you. What does the seller want you to do? Write that contract and sell that house. So be careful in our effort to not put buyers, even if they're total strangers to us at that moment, in a bad position or cross a line. Be careful we're not harming our seller who's hired us to sell the house. So don't always feel like you have to stop the process, because then what happens? If you refer them to a buyer's agent, what's that buyer's agent's first duty? Are you sure you've looked at everything? Do you want me to run a quick search and see if there's anything else that might fit you better than this house you're all emotional about? Now what have we done to our sellers? Okay. Dual agency, we really, really, really try to avoid. We do it sometimes. And it tends to be in cases where Kathy C is a great example. She's so dominant in the northwest part of the county. When somebody wants to list a house, they call Kathy. When somebody wants to buy a house, they call Kathy. So she ends up showing her buyer clients a lot of her own houses. And so sometimes they end up in a dual agency situation. Sometimes she refers them out and it becomes designated. Dual agency is awesome when it works. But if there's anything but a perfect deal, you have to turn to both of those clients who are paying you the same fee they agreed to in the beginning when you worked only for one of them, and say, I can't help you. And that really stinks. So it's something to be very, very careful about. So we talked a little bit about disclosure upon substantive discussions. Now, obviously, if they're represented by another buyer, you don't need to have any of these discussions. Sometimes we end up having discussions about terminating an agency relationship. It's a contract between the firm and the buyer or the seller. And so on the listing side, it's a little, again, I'm not a lawyer disclosure, but what the lawyers say is that is a service contract. So if the seller calls me up and says, hey, I want you to stop all marketing activity from my house, take it off the market, I have to do that. That doesn't mean the contract is broken. It doesn't mean that if the house sells, if he's trying to do an end around, if the house sells during the listing period, he still owes us the commission. But we can't say, no, we have a contract to market your house and I'm going to market it whether you like it or not. We have to take it off the market. Similarly, we can fire our clients if they're not living up to their end of the bargain, if they're not making a house available for showings, if they are insisting on being at showings and scaring people away, if they are totally unreasonable on some issue that affects the marketability of the house. We can terminate that relationship. Sometimes that feels really good. Paul talks about his list and contacts of folks that you don't even want to pick up the phone if they call you again. And we all know there are those folks out there, and you don't necessarily have to suffer through if they're just tough to deal with, but haven't really violated any of the terms of the agreement. We just have to suck it up and deal with them. But if they are impeding what they've hired us to do, whether it's on the buyer's, if you have a buyer that's made 4 offers and broken them all because of the home inspection, there's something going on there that tells me they don't really want to buy a house. So in those cases, there's nothing wrong with having a discussion with them and saying, I think you might be better served by somebody else. We're terminating our agreement. All right, they always finish up with a few questions. Do I need a written brokerage agreement to show a house to a prospective client? No. Now, before I click through the answers, understand they will always give you the most conservative possible answer because they know they're putting it out across the street. So, and also remember that Laura's favorite answer is it depends. Always. Depends on how you define showing property. Again, if you're using your expertise or judgment, then it requires you to have a written agreement. If you're showing them around and talking about the basic facts, it doesn't. Well, if I represent a seller and an interested buyer wants me to write the offer but does not want representation, do I have to sign a buyer brokerage agreement with them? If they do not want representation, what do we sign with them? Disclosure to an unrepresented party. right? Which says they acknowledge their customer, that the other party in the transaction's our client. We're working for their best interest. We still have to be honest with them, but we can't give them advice on negotiating strategy, what to ask for in their home inspection punch list, those kind of things. No. I'm a listing agent, and an unrepresented buyer approached me in open house about writing an offer on the property. Do I need to be a dual agent to receive the full commission? Big resounding no. No, you certainly don't. If it's client-customer, there's no other agents involved, you receive both sides, even though you didn't represent the buyer. All right, that's it. Questions about that? Real life situations that were tricky. No? That surprises me.
Question.
Okay.
If you have a buyer's agreement and they do go to somebody else, how do you enforce that?
In theory, you have a legal agreement and you can take them to court. In reality, we try to negotiate some kind of compromise, usually a referral fee. Yeah. We've got one going now that we have gotten an attorney involved because it's very, very, very clear that the buyer and seller colluded to go around the buyer's agent, reduce the commission by half. So it's crystal clear what happened. So we're gonna, and again, in that one, we're not asking them for the full commission, but something to compensate the agent for the 2 months that she worked with them and the advice she gave them. Okay. We've got our HRAR Gala coming up this Wednesday. Who's going to that? Okay. Anything you want to say? Or are you saving it all for your speech?
My speech will be blessedly short. I had the flu 2 weeks ago, and I can only talk for about 5 minutes, but I ordered a coffee today.
Mm-hmm.
No, it'll be fun. It's 100-year anniversary of Virginia Realtors. Kemper's our president. He'll be giving a longer speech than me. Bluestone is a venue. It's not going to be 25 below zero this year.
Right.
Like it was last year. No, it's a fun night.
It's going to be a fun night, right.
You can, I don't know if it's still registered.
It's probably closed, but I bet if you call Jennifer, she could squeak in. So, and Jeremy is going to be inducted as president. Who has listings they want to talk about? I didn't get any emailed. Oh, you had two, right? You have two upcoming.
I have two listings coming up that should be pretty popular listings. One is in Spring Oaks. Those of you all who know Spring Oaks know that that's a very popular area, very nice. It is one of the larger units in there, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, a little bit shy of 2,700 square feet, so it's quite spacious, lots of storage. New hardwood floors were put in when my client bought it in 2012 on the main level, and they're really beautiful. The whole lower level, she put in laminate floors. She had a lot of allergy problems, so she didn't want any carpet in her house. The only place there's carpet is in the set of stairs going up and down. 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, laundry on the main level, spacious master bedroom suite on the main level, an office, small office with sliding or pocket French doors to separate it. Really, really nice property. Jessica staged it yesterday, and photos are being taken today. Should be on the market, I'm guessing, Thursday. Maybe. Yeah, it's way up at the top. For those of you all who know Spring Oaks, it's one of the units way at the top. Got a really nice summer, let's say wintertime view out the back deck when the trees are not, or leaves are not on the trees. So that'll go on the market this week for $339. So keep your eye out on that one. And then I've got another one that's going to be probably a couple more weeks before it comes up, but in Bridgewater, in the Ashby Villa subdivision, mostly duplexes, but this unit happens to be a single family, small, 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, all brick, 1-car garage, very cute little unit, and that'll be going on the market at $229. So, couple to be letting your folks know about coming up soon.
Awesome. Who else? Jason? Come on in. I'll pull up your pictures.
Morning, Klein Mays.
Good morning, Jason.
Where'd it go?
The property listing I'm going to present is not on MLS yet, and it can be great investment property or a first-time home buyer who are looking for single detached house in downtown of Harrisonburg. The property address is 52 Model Street, Harrisonburg. It's second house just off the East Market Street, and so it's only a couple blocks away from the downtown and courthouse. It's
There you go.
yeah, the location, and it's beautifully and maintained by wonderful tenants. And current tenants pay $14.25 per month, and their lease will end of June this year, so about less than 5 months. So
How long have they been there?
they've been a year.
A year.
Yes, and the seller, he's an investor, so he wants to sell and cash out. And so, but I know there are very few single family, single house in Harrisonburg area. So I thought it can be good property for end users, which you are currently working with. And it has, the main floor has 1 bedroom and large living room area and formal dining room, and also glass enclosed sunroom. And upstairs has a 2-bedroom and 1 bath. So total 3-bedroom, 2 baths, 2 full baths unit. And the price is $219,999, and so it's $1 less than $220. So it sounds cheap, right? Yeah. And total size is about 1440, and it's a great building and great location and great tenants. And if you have any buyer looking for their home or investor looking for investment property, please let me know. The seller wants to hold listing on MLS yet, but if you have a buyer, let me know and I can arrange showing anytime with a 24-hour notice. Okay, the price less than $220. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Anybody else?
Jason, good to see you, buddy.
No? Okay. Have a great day. Don't forget the Lunch and Learn Thursday.
That is his lunch market. Gotcha. So it is a good time. Anytime you might get somebody to coach you that has a commercial need